Have you ever filled pages of your journal with positive affirmations, covered your walls with vision boards, and told yourself that if you only believed hard enough, the universe would respond? We are taught that by simply maintaining an optimistic mind and relentlessly repeating our desires, success and peace will eventually find their way to us. But then, after all those moments of euphoria, reality remains silent. The gap between what you envision and what you can actually touch remains an unbridgeable abyss. The truth is, solitary desire possesses a deceptive beauty. Optimism, when isolated from action, is like a gust of wind hitting a boat without sails. It creates the illusion of movement, but it takes you nowhere. Desire without discipline is merely a fuel that flares up for a moment, only to crumble into ash. And that feeling of making progress while you are lost in imagination is actually just a play on repeat in your mind, where the curtain never truly rises in the real world. It is time to face a colder truth. The world does not reward you for what you crave. It only responds to what you actually do. If you are tired of chasing beautiful but hollow illusions, stop for a moment. Choose one action, however small, but make it real, and start there. If you are looking for a path that doesn't rely on luck, but on discipline and self-mastery, stay right here. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment about the first change you are going to make. Because right now, we aren't going to talk about dreams. We are going to talk about a raw, silent power, one capable of shifting the entire trajectory of your life, if you dare to use it. 1. The flaw in positive thinking and modern law of attraction. We live in an era enchanted by the surface of success, where people diligently write phrases like, "I attract abundance," and quietly believe that as long as they maintain the right internal frequency, rewards will simply find them. This is the sweetest trap of what is known as the modern law of attraction. It lulls the brain with a sophisticated illusion, causing us to mistake the feeling of moving forward with actual movement in life. When you sit still in a quiet room, vividly imagining a promotion, a wealthy life, or a perfect relationship, your mind is instantly soothed. But that sense of satisfaction, if severed from action, is merely a gust of wind blowing into a boat without a rudder. It ripples the water, creating the illusion of motion, yet reality remains anchored exactly where it was. One can spend hours mapping out a perfect mountain trail, memorizing every turn, visualizing every breath, even feeling as though the summit is within reach. But as long as the feet haven't touched the jagged rock, that mountain remains nothing more than an idol in the imagination. Hope can ignite the spirit, but it cannot mold reality on its own. The harsh truth is that life does not reward the intensity of your longing. It only responds to what you repeat long enough, with enough discipline, and with enough honesty. The fatal flaw of positive thinking is not that it is entirely wrong, but that it makes people feel they have progressed simply because they have thought deeply about change. It soothes anxiety too early, an anxiety that should have been converted into action. Desire in itself is not evil, but desire, when uncoupled from discipline, is nothing more than wild energy. It burns brilliantly for a moment, making you feel moved, making you believe, making you imagine you are about to step into a new life. Then, it withers just as quickly, leaving behind a few wisps of smoke and an unmoved reality. This is why so many are addicted to the feeling of being inspired, yet remain strangers to actual transformation. They constantly feed themselves beautiful affirmations, but never summon the courage to enter the hardest part, facing old habits, procrastination, the fear of failure, and the weak ego that silently sabotages every promise they make to themselves. Carl Jung once left a ruthless warning. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is where superficial positive thinking reveals its ultimate limit. It teaches people to dream of the light, but does not force them to look at the darkness within. It encourages craving results, but doesn't force them to question why they continue to betray themselves in every small choice each day. Fate is not written by whispers in the silence. It is carved out by what you do when no one is watching, when inspiration has vanished, and when favor no longer stands on your side. This is the thinnest line between those living in a delusion and those truly mastering their lives. It is not the one who desires more intensely who wins. It is not the one who believes more who is handed the prize. The person who changes their fate is the one who dares to abandon the comfort of imagination to step into the rigor of action. Because ultimately, life does not bow to those who only know how to hope. It only opens the path for those sober enough to turn will into discipline, and discipline into a power that is non-negotiable. 2. The foundational stage: clarity and the power of cumulative action. When the mist of illusions begins to fade, the only thing that can save a person from instability is not another word of encouragement, but a solid foundation. And that foundation always begins with clarity. But clarity doesn't mean describing in detail the car you want or the title you hope to one day achieve. Through the Stoic lens, clarity is looking directly at life and distinguishing clearly between what is within your control and what is not, while simultaneously identifying the core values you will not betray on this journey. Without this orientation, it is easy to be busy without moving forward, easy to strive much, yet live in a state of silent drifting. This is why journals should not merely be storehouses for beautiful longings. They must become tools of rigorous reflection. Every goal written down must pull with it a specific action. Every intention must be accompanied by a step that can be taken today. If a line of text cannot be turned into a task, it remains an idea imprisoned on paper. True clarity does not create euphoria. It creates direction. It forces you to stop being vague, stop self-deluding, and start living in a direct relationship with reality. But a right direction is still not enough. Once an idea leaves the page, it must be validated by repeated action. This is where many give up, for they are always waiting for a major turning point, a brilliant breakthrough, a sublime moment powerful enough to change their entire life. Meanwhile, true creative power operates in silence. It lies in small things, repeated long enough. It lies in consistent presence, in the ability to keep doing the right thing even when no result is large enough to encourage you. A single strike from a sculptor's hammer may look weak and meaningless in isolation, but thousands of intentional strikes will peel away every excess layer of stone until the hidden form emerges. A human life operates on the same principle. What changes you is not a great surge of inspiration, but small actions, precise and persistent enough to accumulate into momentum. In the early stages of transformation, you will see almost nothing. Every effort will feel like too little, too slow, too quiet. But that is not a sign of failure. It is the law of true growth. Every right decision, every victory over procrastination, every hour of focus protected from distraction is silently building a strength that the naked eye cannot yet perceive. What people often call a turning point is usually just the final visible result of a long process of invisible accumulation. Therefore, instead of being obsessed with a vision 10 years from now, learn to narrow your vision to the present hour. Do not ask how to change your entire fate in one go. Ask how not to betray yourself in this 1 hour before you. And then, the moment you begin to live with such discipline, life will respond immediately. Not with an instant reward, but with resistance. Your quiet plan on paper will collide with the jarring noise of reality. You will encounter procrastination, fatigue, doubt, failure, cold walls that seem built only to force you to turn back. In that moment, the greatest question will arise. Is that pain a sign that you have taken the wrong path? Or is it the very first gate that every maturing human being must pass through? Because sometimes, the greatest power lies not in dreaming right or thinking right, but in the ability to keep going when reality begins to fight back. 3. Decoding resistance, turning adversity into leverage. That cold stone wall often bears a name that makes people flinch: resistance. We are often lulled by a comfortable illusion that if a path is truly meant for us, it will unfold with ease, gentleness, and almost no friction. But life has never operated that way. Reality is far more impartial than we care to believe. Friction is not an anomaly on the journey. More often than not, it is the very evidence that you have touched something of genuine value. The more worthwhile the destination, the more the stretch of life you must traverse to reach it demands endurance, clarity, and character. Resistance is not an ill omen, nor is it the invisible hand of fate trying to push you back. It is a test of character. It appears to strip away the mask, revealing the difference between those who merely love the glamour of the result and those who truly bind their lives to a purpose. When the days of exhaustion arrive, when effort seems to vanish into the void, when you begin to doubt the entire path, this is not necessarily a sign that you are wrong. Quite likely, it is the stage where you are being recalibrated. Reality is forcing you to expose your weaknesses, a skill not yet sharp enough, an internal strength not yet resilient enough, or a mind still too dependent on immediate gratification. Look at the sculptor standing before a raw block of stone. Every strike of the chisel against the hardest part is not an act of destruction, but a rigorous dialogue between will and material. The sculptor does not curse the stone for resisting. They observe, adjust their grip, sharpen their tools, and continue. It is the very stubbornness of the block that forces the lines of the artwork to become more precise. Life is the same. Adversity does not break you in the way you fear. It only breaks what is weak, superficial, undisciplined, and dishonest within you. If you do not run, what remains after the collision will always be more solid than before. This is why the most vital lesson is not to endure blindly, but to learn how to read the resistance. When a door slams in your face, the instinctive human reaction is panic, self-pity, or an emotional attempt to force it open. But the mature individual takes a step back. They understand that hardship is performing the work of a cold teacher. It is pointing out where they are loose, where they are naive, and where they are unprepared. In that moment, adversity ceases to be an obstacle. It becomes a map. It tells you what to forge, what to discard, what to fix, and where you must grow further to proceed. Epictetus once pointed to a liberating truth. It is not events that disturb us, but our judgment of them. Adversity itself carries no inherent power to destroy. It is our fearful interpretation that turns it into chains. When you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "Who is this forcing me to become?" the entire game changes. You no longer face the challenge as a cornered victim. You enter it as an apprentice being forged in the necessary furnace of your own life. But as you go deeper into that zone of friction, you will realize a paradox even harder than enduring pain. Resilience will take you to the edge of your capacity. where you have exhausted almost all your strength, time, and will. And it is right there that a new trap appears. If you continue to tighten your grip on expectation, demanding that the reward arrive exactly as you wish, you will suffocate your own mind. After you have done everything within your power, there is an even higher art to be learned. It is no longer the art of trying. It is the art of letting go of the obsession with results. This is where a deeper kind of power begins to emerge, the power of surrender. 4. The paradox of letting go and redefining success. In the eyes of most, letting go is often misunderstood as a state of weak resignation. People imagine that letting go means stepping back, drifting, sitting still, and hoping some force will arrange everything in the most pleasant way. But under the sober gaze of Stoic philosophy, letting go is anything but passive. It is a highly disciplined internal act that appears only after you have exhausted every effort within your domain. You have thought deeply enough, prepared thoroughly enough, acted with enough gravity, corrected mistakes with enough honesty, and maintained effort far longer than the initial spark of inspiration. Only then does letting go hold true meaning. It is not abandoning responsibility, it is abandoning the attachment to what was never fully within your control. The mature person does not let go before the fight. They let go after having fought with everything they have. This is the core paradox that few are calm enough to grasp. You must act with the highest intensity while keeping your mind uncoupled from the prize. You must pour your finest qualities into the task at hand without letting the outcome define your worth. Because the moment you begin to identify yourself with success or failure, your mind becomes a hostage to anxiety. You will no longer act from clarity, but from a fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of things not going exactly as desired. And it is that very attachment that corrupts the precision of the will. The power of letting go lies in the fact that it releases mental energy. When you stop trying to control what is not yours to control, you do not become weaker. You become sharper. You see things more clearly. You make decisions with less panic. You no longer act from a hunger for validation, but from a commitment to what is right. This is a rare internal state, to do your best, but not to beg life for an immediate return. This tranquility is the hallmark of a spiritually mature human being. They do not stop striving, yet they do not self-destruct over results that arrive slowly, sparingly, or not at all as originally envisioned. And from here, the concept of success must be re-examined at its roots. Society is accustomed to measuring success by wealth, status, fame, tangible symbols enough for others to look up to. But all these things are more fragile than we imagine. They can come and go. They can be misplaced. They can be possessed by a person who is brilliant on the outside but hollow within. If the value of a life is placed solely on these external things, then one will forever live in fear, for any shift in fortune can strip away the sense of who they are. In the Stoic spirit, true success has never been about what you have. It is about who you have become in the process of pursuing what you deem worthwhile. A person may not yet have reached glory by the standards of the crowd, but if they have forged integrity, equanimity, self-mastery, the capacity to endure, and a mind no longer easily swayed by external circumstances, then they possess a form of success that is far deeper. It is something that does not depend on applause. It needs no external validation. It cannot be seized by the market, by fame, or by the conditions of the times. And the most beautiful paradox is that when you stop living to possess, stop living to prove, and stop desperately demanding a specific result from life, you finally begin to build something far more enduring. Not an image of success to display, but a self strong enough to live fully. Ultimately, this journey was never about begging life for a reward. It is a journey of forging yourself into a person who no longer needs to beg. You begin by discarding illusions. You learn to act with clarity. You pass through friction. You endure adversity. And finally, you learn to let go of the result to preserve your inner freedom. That is when fate truly shifts. Not because the universe suddenly favors you more, but because from that moment on, you are no longer a person pushed around by life. You have become someone who can stand firm amidst any upheaval, quietly shaping your own life from within. 5. Becoming the architect of your own life. When you stop wrestling with what is out of reach and channel your entire life force into the domain that truly belongs to you, a profound transformation begins. It is the moment when mind, action, and values no longer pull in 3 different directions, but align into a single, unified force. From here, changing your life is no longer a vague notion or a plea sent into the void. It becomes a structured, disciplined process with a very clear price tag. You see the path more vividly. You act with greater precision, and every adversity that once made you flinch now becomes the raw material used to forge yourself stronger than before. No stable life is built on whim. Every great form is created through small choices repeated in silence. Your life is no different. The act of waking up earlier to hone a skill, the act of maintaining composure in the face of an insult, the act of completing what must be done even when inspiration has fled, all these seemingly insignificant things are quietly constructing who you are. Excellence has never been a flash of brilliance that disappears. It is the result of a way of living repeated long enough. Every time you stand before a choice and choose the right thing over the easy thing, you are manually shaping your fate at its deepest level, the level of character. This is why true transformation is rarely loud. It doesn't happen in the moments when people make grand proclamations about the future. It happens in the most ordinary hours, on the days when no one is watching, in the times you quietly keep a promise to yourself. This journey is not for the impatient, nor for those who wish to borrow a sense of achievement without paying the price of discipline. It requires you to look directly at the weakness, procrastination, fear, and chaos within you. Only by daring to face it do you stop living as someone pushed by life from one direction to another. You cannot force the world to operate according to your will, but you can always forge yourself to be strong enough so that the world cannot break you. And that is the pivot point of this entire journey. Real power does not lie in forcing circumstances to conform to you. It lies in the ability to maintain clarity when circumstances oppose you. It lies in the capacity to act without waiting for inspiration, to endure without self-pity, to let go without surrendering, and to continue building your life even when no one is there to witness it. When a person reaches that state, they no longer ask life for a perfect blueprint. They become the ones holding the pen. From that moment on, everything changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes gentler, not because fate is suddenly more biased in your favor, but because you have ceased to be a reactor and have begun to be a creator. You understand what must be released. You know what must be kept. You accept the price of growth. And you no longer wait to be saved by some miracle, because the way you live now is the most difficult miracle of all, one that most people are not persistent enough to pursue. The final question, therefore, has never been how much life will give you. The real question is, from this moment forward, who will you build? Because your next decision, no matter how small, will no longer be a meaningless moment. it will be the first stroke on the blueprint of a new human being, or the familiar procrastination that continues to lock you within your old version. True transformation never arrives like a clap of thunder or a sudden moment of glory. It always begins in silence, distilled from the small choices that the world rarely sees. Look at an ancient tree standing amidst harsh nature. For years, no one notices how it silently pushes its roots through the hardened earth, reaching into the darkness to find the water that sustains it. Its strength does not lie in its towering canopy, but in what has been built in the stillness. A human life is the same. All genuine transformation comes not from pleading, but from the moment when mental clarity meets disciplined action. Seneca once reminded us that no greatness is built in haste. It is formed only through rational effort, repeated long enough. Every step you take today, no matter how small or tedious, is silently laying the foundation for the person you are to become. Carl Jung also pointed out that the greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But to reach that privilege, you must abandon the stance of one who merely waits for fate and accept the responsibility of the self-created life. No one can walk this path for you, and no one can take away the power of choice that rests in your hands right now. If what you heard today touched a deep part of your soul, do not let it end as mere emotion. Turn it into a decision. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment about one thing you will change starting today, and share this video to help build a community of those who do not just reflect, but act. Stoic Journey is not here to lull you with beautiful words. We're here to forge, together, a mind that does not easily bow before the storm. And now, continue that journey with the next video on your screen. Because the ultimate truth is this: your life does not change on some glorious day in the future. It changes in the decision you dare to make at this very moment.